in, and we'll dive right into the sentence equivalence. So, quick reminder: we've seen these problems before. All right, in week 1 we took a look at these, but what I really want to do is show you guys how similar they are to text completions. Our 3-step process is exactly the same. All right, we still want to read only the sentence. We don't want to look at the answers too quickly. And when we're reading that sentence, we're trying to figure out what the clue is that tells us what the blank is all about, what the pivot is that tells us whether the clue agrees or disagrees with the blank. And finally, and this isn't always helpful, but it often is, understanding what the blank itself is referring to, the target. And knowing what the target is can sometimes help us understand the context of the sentence, and especially what general, broad category of word type we're looking for. And we want to take our time and write our own fill-in. In other words, we don't want to go back to the answers and plug them in and hope that one of them seems to work out well. Instead, what we want to do is we want to come up with our own fill-in based on the target, the clue, and the pivot, and then compare each of the answer choices back to that fill-in, and that's the basic approach that we're taking with text completions, and it's also the approach that's going to work really well for sentence equivalence. And both types of problems have the same sorts of traps. You might run into a theme trap. Everybody remember what a theme trap is? All right, Catherine's giving me a smiley face, so type it in. What's a theme trap? Give me a description of what a theme trap is. All right, we got let's see. When an answer choice fits the theme of the sentence but not the blank. Yeah, matches a general theme in the sentence. Yeah, you guys both have it. Absolutely. These are really common. This might be the most important trap to be aware of. Thankfully, it's also the easiest trap to avoid. One way you can use this is if you have no clue what's going on, but you know the sentence is about astronomy and one of the answers is about the sun, chances are good that's wrong, right? Even if you don't understand the rest of it, chances are good they're trying out a theme trap. We also saw spin traps, traps where the word seemed to be correct in meaning, at least generally speaking, but there was something wrong. Maybe we were looking for a word that means a negative version of asking for a favor, but this answer was a positive word that means asking someone. So in other words, the general meaning is correct, but it's wrong in terms of its spin, whether it's positive or negative or neutral. And then we also saw reversal traps, and these are situations where they just give us an answer choice that is the exact opposite, that is an antonym of the answer that we're looking for. And you'd think that those wouldn't be very good traps. But the reason why they work is sometimes we miss the pivot. Sometimes we miss a however or a yet or a not. And when we miss the pivot, then of course we're going to think it's the exact opposite of what we're looking for. So that's why it's so important to keep our eyes out for that. So just like on the text completions, the sentence equivalence problems have no partial credit. On the sentence equivalence problems, we are going to be given 2 correct answers per blank, and then out of 6. So your answer choices, there's going to be 4 wrong answers and 2 correct answers, and those 2 correct answers are going to be roughly synonymous, although not necessarily perfectly synonymous. But what I mean by partial credit is if we get one of the 2 correct answers, but we miss the other one, we miss the entire problem. There's no partial credit. Just like on the 2 blank and the 3 blank problems on text completions, if we get 1 or 2 of the blanks right, but we miss the 3rd one, we don't get any partial credit. We get it. It counts as being wrong just as much as the person who got none of the blanks correct. Fair or not, that's the way they've designed the test. So the summary here is the basic idea is that everything we learned to do last week with the text completions, we're basically going to keep doing it, especially when it comes to how we read the sentence, what we look for in the sentence, and writing our own fillers. Once we get to the answers, things are going to change a little bit, but not as much as you'd think. All right, so let's see this in more of a particular sense. So here we've got a sentence, and I just want to show you guys the idea that, that we've got these 6 answers, and we're going to be asked to select 2 answer choices. But what's the very first thing I should do? What do you guys think? First thing I should do? Even before that, even before I start figuring out what the target is, the clue, the pivot, yeah, read the sentence, and part of reading the sentence is also ignoring the answer choices. We do not want to let ourselves get biased too quickly to the answer choices. It's very, very hard to give up an answer that we like once we've decided we like it for whatever reason. And that might be some sort of bias you have towards that word, or it just sounds cool to you, or whatever. It's very hard to give up a wrong answer once we've decided we like it. So we don't even want to give ourselves the opportunity. And that means I would advise, and as silly as this sounds, it's something that I do on the day of the test, when you get a new problem, put your hand up on the screen and cover up the answer choices. Don't let yourself get influenced by them too early. Okay, so let's look at this sentence. So, on the battlefield, there is no time to blank. Decisions must be made surely and swiftly. All right, so we've read the sentence, and you guys all had it. The next thing is to try to find the target, the clue, and the pivot. In this particular problem, the target is a little bit abstract, but we'll get to that in a second. What do you guys think the clue and the pivot are? Yeah, Catherine, I'd agree with that. That little semicolon there is pretty important, right? It tells me that the second half of the sentence is linked to the first half of the sentence. And in this case, without a word like however, not, right, any of those sorts of things, I'm thinking it's in the same direction. And Catherine's also giving me the clue, the decision must be made surely and swiftly. So do we think the clue agrees or disagrees with the blank? What do you guys think? Ooh, disagrees. Why disagrees? It's a semicolon that agrees. Why disagrees? Did we miss a pivot? Ah, Jane's got it. We've also got this idea of no time to. So we've actually got 2 pivots in here. That semicolon tells me the second half of the sentence agrees with the first half of the sentence. So there's agreement between the first sentence, or the first portion of the sentence, and the second portion of the sentence. But that doesn't mean there's agreement between the second portion of the sentence and the actual word. Not when we put in a phrase like, there is no time to, right? And now we want to take the time to write our own fill-in, and hopefully on our own sheet of paper. So what do you guys think? Anybody have a good idea of a word we could put in? On the battlefield, there's no time. I like it. There's no time to waste. Okay? We can't waste time. We need to make decisions swiftly. Good. I like it. Anybody else? Any other words you guys like together? Yeah, maybe. Maybe, Catherine. The correct answer will kind of work being the opposite of both, but yeah. So wasting time would be the opposite of doing things swiftly. What's the opposite of doing things with surety? Doing things with confidence the very first time. Yeah, indecisive. Being indecisive. I like that. Or indecisively. I like that. Okay, so now that we've got our own fillers, if you guys notice, I've still got those answer choices covered up. I'm not letting you look at those answer choices yet until we've come up with our 2 fillers. Now we're going to go to the answer choices and compare each answer choice and mark our paper. And we'll use the same, system that we used before, the idea that we'll put a check mark if we like a word, we'll put an X mark if we know it's wrong, we'll use a little sort of a tilde if we think that it might work, worth keeping for now. And then if we don't know a word, we've got to be willing, we've got to be open to the idea that that might be the right answer. So if we don't know the word, we got to hold on to it. All right, here we go. Does vacillate mean to waste time or to be indecisive? Okay, I've got a couple of yeses, 3 yeses. All right, I'm going to put a check here. How about exculpate? Does exculpate have to do with wasting time or being indecisive? What do you guys think? Exculpate. Catherine's saying no. Caitlin's saying not sure. Emma's saying not sure. Jane, all right. Catherine, we'll come back to you. Oh, Catherine already gave us the correct definition, and she's got it down, right? Oh, no problem at all. No problem at all. Always good to know the words. Yeah, so exculpate means to free from blame. That is exactly the right definition. Basically, you might use it in a sentence such as, the guy was really worried that he was going to be falsely convicted of the crime, but thankfully DNA evidence exculpated him. In other words, proved that he was innocent. Okay, how about wane? Does wane mean indecisiveness or wasting time? What do you guys think? Wane means to decrease. I've got to vote for yes. Jignasha, you're saying it means to decrease. You're totally right. Does that mean it means the same thing as wasting time or being indecisive? Okay. So let's put a, oh, Emma's giving us a not really. Sort of. Okay, let's go with sort of here. I agree with that. Let's go with sort of here. How about abate? What does abate mean? Okay, so it means something pretty similar to wane. What do you guys think about that? Okay, so let's do the same thing we did with wane, okay? And we'll come back and talk about that in a little bit. How about equivocate? How about equivocate? What do you guys think? Does equivocate mean wasting time or being indecisive? Ooh, we've got some serious disagreement here. We've got some serious disagreement here. Catherine's saying means giving equal voices to. Jignasha says agree on something. Interesting. All right, I'm going to hold on to this one. Here's what's cool about these problems. We are still going to get this right here, even though we've got a bunch that we're a little bit unsure of. Okay, last one, apprise. Not to be confused with the word appraise. Appraise means to discover the value of something. What does apprise mean? Yeah, to tell something, to inform, right? Now, does that work? Does to tell or inform mean the same thing as wasting time or being indecisive? Okay, so let's put an X here. All right, now I want you guys to look at this set of answers. Look at this set of answers. We kept vacillate because we thought it was a really good answer. But we had 3 more that we sort of thought were decent answers. First off, the word apprise and the word exculpate have no relationship to each other at all. They don't form a pair of words. And if they don't form a pair of words, they have to be wrong, right? Because we're looking for 2 answers. That doesn't mean those answers have to be literally synonymous, but they have to be pretty close. And apprise and exculpate do not work. Now, out of the remaining words, do you see another pair of words that you know are synonyms? Okay, wane and abate are a pair of synonyms. That means they might be the correct answer. I'm not saying they are. In fact, we're going to have to go back and look at our sentence again to be sure. But the fact that they form a pair of synonyms means it is possible for them to be the correct answer. Whereas exculpate and apprise, it was impossible for them to be, for either to be correct because they didn't have a paired word. Okay, so that means that probably vacillate and equivocate are synonyms as well. And the reason I say that is on the vast majority of these problems, you're going to get two pairs of synonyms and two unrelated words. That's what's going to happen almost every one of these problems. Two pairs of synonyms and then two completely unrelated words. So in this case, exculpate and apprise are our two unrelated words, and then wane and abate are one of our pairs. And I'm assuming, even if I don't know for sure what equivocate means, I'm assuming equivocate means the same thing as vacillate, even if I don't know what it means, just because I understand how these problems work. Now, if wane and abate work really well, I'm picking them. But if they don't work really well, I've got to pick vacillate and equivocate, even though I don't really feel like I've got a great idea what equivocate means. So let me ask you guys this. Does it make sense that on the battlefield there is no time to decrease? Decisions must be made surely and swiftly. Do wane and abate make sense, make good sense in this problem? All right, so they've got to be wrong, and that means our answer, even if we don't really know equivocate all that well, it's got to be the same thing as vacillate. And actually, equivocate does mean almost exactly the same thing as vacillate. Both mean to waver from side to side. The reason why the word equivocate means that is it literally comes from the root voc, which means speak or talk or words, and the root equi, which means equal. So the original sort of the classic meaning is equal talking. But what it's come to mean today is when you argue equally for both sides. In other words, you don't take a stand on either side, you support both sides at the same time. Right, yeah, you're being ambiguous. You're not making a firm decision either way. You're on both sides at the same time. Right, so when you see a politician that's asked a difficult question and they're not willing to really answer it directly, they kind of argue both sides of it to try to make themselves, to try to make sure they don't anger anybody. They're equivocating. Or vacillating means the same thing. All right, so what you guys just saw there was how we use our basic approach to read the sentence, to figure out what the pivot is, what the clue is, if there's a good way to think about the target. In this case, there wasn't really a solid target, but you can think of it as the thing there is no time to do if you want to. All of this is exactly what we did with the text completions. But notice what we did when we got to the answers. We used a little bit of answer analysis to assist us in narrowing down the choices and giving ourselves a pretty good idea of what the correct pair had to be, even if we didn't necessarily know the words perfectly. Now, this is just a taste of answer analysis. In a little while, we're going to do problems purely using answer analysis, which is pretty cool, actually. But for now, let's keep focused on the same basic approach that we've been using for the text completions, but also be aware that there's patterns in the answer choices that we can, that are there to make it harder, but if we know how they work, we can use them to exploit. Okay, so the fill-in is still going to be the target plus the clue plus the pivot. So let's take a look at this problem. This one's got harder words. For all the candidates' magnanimous posturing, it soon became obvious to everyone that his plans were mere blank. Okay, we've looked at the original sentence. What's the target here? What do you guys think? What is the blank talking about? Is the blank describing anything? Yeah, Caitlin's got it. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. Sorry, I'm losing control of my mouse here. Caitlin's got it. It's the plans that are being described. So now, how does this help us? Well, it's not the most important thing in the sentence, but it is a little bit helpful potentially, because now we know that the word we're looking for in the blank is something that could be used to describe someone's plans. And that helps. That helps, you know. That helps us out a little bit. It narrows down the field of what makes sense. Okay, so let's take a look also at the clues. So what is a clue? It tells us what kind of word goes in the blank. What clue do we have here, or clues? What do you guys think? Yeah, magnanimous posturing. What does magnanimous mean? Anybody know what magnanimous means? Grand. Yeah, sort of, but be a little bit careful. This is the word that more precisely means grand. Oops, I just typed it to Liz instead of you guys. That's the word that more precisely means grand. Magnanimous, you can think about it as being grand in some ways, but not in all ways. Yeah. So magnanimous is usually used to mean someone that is very generous in spirit, and they might be very, larger than life. But in other words, the sports player that when his team wins talks about how great the other team was, or when his team loses also talks about how great the other team was. That's being magnanimous in victory or magnanimous in defeat. That's what we mean by magnanimous, noble or generous of spirit, and oftentimes in a kind of larger-than-life grand way, but not necessarily. Okay, so do you guys think, there we go, magnificent word. Yeah, exactly. Do you guys think that this clue is going to agree or disagree with the blank? Probably disagree. Why? Why do you guys think that? What's the trigger? What's the pivot? Okay, so we've got mere. I agree with that. It became obvious. I agree with that. What else? There's one other thing in there that we don't always recognize as being a reversal. Jane's got it, right? For all of. Lots of times people think that this phrase, for all of, means that it's in the same direction. But think about this sentence for a second. For all of his hard studying, he blanked. For all of his hard studying, would we say he got a great score on the test? No, it's the exact opposite. For all of his hard studying, he failed, right? That's what that means, right? For all of says that even though you did all of these things, the opposite happened. It's like saying even though he studied very hard, comma, he failed, right? So think of for all of as being almost a way of saying even though this happened, we expect the opposite to have occurred. And that's probably the clearest of the fillers, although I think you guys are totally right that it was mere and became obvious. Okay, now it's kind of hard to figure out our own filler in this particular problem, but would you say it's positive or negative? Yeah, it's going to be something negative. I have a hard time with this one of being precisely sure what the correct answer is ahead of time, but I know it's going to be something that's negative, right? Even though he acted very generous and noble, it soon became obvious that his plans were mere blank, something negative. So let's look at these answer choices here. Epistemology, what do you guys think? And as always, question mark is totally allowed. What do you guys think about epistemology? Does anybody know that word? You'll get to know it in grad school a lot. Okay. Well, we'll put a question mark for now, but Liz has got a good idea. Look at that ology. Yeah, and Catherine's got it. Epistemology is the philosophy of how we know things. So the study of how, not just knowledge itself, but how human beings come to have knowledge. But we'll come back to that. I'm going to leave it as a question mark for now. How about semantics? So Emma, what does semantics mean? That would be syntax. Semantics is the, you got it. So semantics, and Catherine's telling us disagreement in the meaning of the word. That's how you often hear it used, but it actually just means the meaning of the words is semantics, the study of what words mean. Syntax is the study of the structure of language. Semantics is the study of meaning. What Catherine's alluding to is the idea that we oftentimes hear people say, oh, you're just arguing about semantics. What that means is instead of arguing about the big picture things, people are simply arguing about the precise meaning of a word. In other words, they're missing the big picture. They're missing the forest and paying too much attention for the trees. That's a negative meaning. But the broader meaning of semantics is very neutral. It's simply the study of the meaning of words, just like syntax is the study of the structure of language, of sentences. All right, but either way, that's out. How about idealism? Is that a negative word? It fits the blank, sort of. Okay, I'm willing to keep it. Let's keep it. Is that a check or a sort of? What do you guys think? Yeah, we'll go with the sort of here. How about rhetoric? His plans were mere rhetoric. What do you guys think? People are saying check mark, sort of versus check mark. We get about half and half. Half and half, so I'll give it this for now. How about pragmatism? Does that work here? Does pragmatism work here? No, it really doesn't, does it? Okay, and finally, grandstanding. How about grandstanding? His plans were mere grandstanding. I've got some sort ofs, I've got some yeses. Okay, so let's now take a look at pairs of answers. Okay, epistemology, Catherine gave us, meant the study of knowledge. That doesn't have a pair. Pragmatism doesn't have a pair either. Semantics doesn't have a pair either. So now we're left with three answers: idealism, rhetoric, and grandstanding. Which of these two answers, and by the way, the reason we're doing this example in the first place is to point out that the correct answers don't always have to be exact synonyms, but they have to be somewhat close. Which of these two are closest together out of the three? Forget the sentence, just analyze the answers. I've got two votes for idealism and grandstanding. I've got a vote for rhetoric and grandstanding. I've got a vote for idealism and grandstanding. Jane, what do you think? So here's where we're at. Everybody likes grandstanding, so we're picking that for sure. I've got 2 votes for rhetoric and 3 votes for idealism. Okay, real day of the test, what am I going to do at this point? Yeah, pick one and move on as quickly as possible. But for today, since we're learning this stuff, we're going to try to figure this out here. Okay, idealism. Idealism. Give me a good definition for that. Anybody got a good definition for idealism? Okay, presenting ideas without the consideration of the practical implications or logistics. Okay, so idealism, yeah, sticking to one's philosophy, not really caring too much about what's actually going to happen. Idealism is, I believe X to be true, so I support it, no matter how that's going to end up working out. What's the antonym of idealism? What would be the opposite of idealism? Pragmatism, yeah. So this is interesting that we've got this idea of idealism and pragmatism. And yeah, Emma, I'd agree, realism, realistic, yeah, and pragmatism means the same thing, practicalness. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now let me ask you guys what the meaning of rhetoric is. Ah, so rhetoric means speaking, art of speaking well. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. So idealism is more about philosophy. Rhetoric is about speaking. Interesting. Well, what does grandstanding mean? Okay, maybe trying to impress someone or a group of people to gain favor. Sure. Specifically, does it have to do with your philosophical beliefs, or does it have to do with how you present yourself, how you speak? Yep, and Jignasha's got it now. Now that we look more carefully, the answer for this pair is actually rhetoric and grandstanding. The problem we ran into here is that we didn't know the negative meaning of rhetoric. Rhetoric has 2 meanings. It's very similar to semantics in that way. One meaning of rhetoric is simply speaking well. That's a very positive thing. But there's another meaning of the word rhetoric, especially when you put it in behind a word like mere or only rhetoric, merely rhetoric, only rhetoric, solely rhetoric. What that means is that the person is not actually telling you anything important. They're simply using their ability to speak to fool you, to convince you, right? There's no message there. It's just pretty words. And that's exactly what grandstanding means here as well. And so the correct pair turns out to be rhetoric and grandstanding. And their relationship with speaking and with convincing others is really what tied them in together, even if we weren't 100% sure of the meaning of rhetoric. Now, by the way, guys, this is an extremely difficult problem. This is an extremely difficult problem. But we handled it in the end. We had to think through it a little bit, and maybe we spent more time on it than we would have had on the day of the test. But the point is that with these problems, we're able to work our way through them, even if they're tough. We're able to work our way through them, and that's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing. Questions about this one at all? So the point to take away from this one is that in the first problem we looked at, vacillate and equivocate were the correct answers. And those were really true synonyms. But in the second problem we looked at, rhetoric and grandstanding, those are not exactly synonyms. Those are not true synonyms. If you look up the word vacillate in a thesaurus, equivocate will be given as one of the words. Same thing, if you look up equivocate in a thesaurus, vacillate will be there. I guarantee it. But in a thesaurus, you might not see rhetoric for grandstanding or vice versa. In fact, you probably wouldn't. The point of all this is that the two correct answers need to be related and similar in very important ways. And they are often true synonyms, but they don't always have to be. Sometimes they're going to be just like we saw with rhetoric and grandstanding. They're going to be not exactly synonyms, and yet they still have to share a number of important features to be correct. If they don't share those features, then they can't work together. Opposites don't work. Words about totally different things don't work. In this case, both of these had to do with the art of speaking or the use of language. Both of them ended up being the same general theme, and that made them a good enough pair, even if they weren't exactly synonyms. But the good thing is, most of the time the correct answers turn out to be good, solid, 100% synonyms, most of the time. Just be prepared to pick words like rhetoric and grandstanding if you don't have good synonyms. Okay, so here's where we're going to go next. We are going to go next into a little bit of answer choice analysis. This is what we can do with these problems that we can't do with the text completions. Now remember, where we're oftentimes or always with the text completions, we want to cover up the answers, read the sentence first. We're going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to cover up the sentence itself, and for a start, we're simply going to work with these answers. So first thing I want to know is, do you guys see any answer choices that form a natural pair, that form a natural pair of words meaning the same thing? What do you guys think? So artless and ingenuous can both mean sincere. Sincere, yeah, and oftentimes in a naive way. I want you guys to be very careful with this word ingenuous. Do not mistake it for this word. What did I change there? I changed the U to an I. What does the word ingenious mean? Anybody know? Ingenious. Yeah, smart, inventive. Ingenuous doesn't have anything to do with your intelligence. Ingenuous has to do with how sincere you are, or naive you are, or how much you believe in others, right? And we usually don't see ingenuous, but the word we do see is disingenuous. Someone that is disingenuous is someone who will try to trick you or to lie to you, or will be insincere. But ingenuous is the opposite of that, and it means the same as artless, lacking cleverness, lacking craftiness. Not necessarily dumb, but lacking sneakiness. Someone that is just an open book, candid, right? Okay, good job. Are there any other pairs here? Absolutely. Covert and surreptitious both mean what? Yeah, secretive, sneaky, hidden, absolutely. All right, now I want to look at the two remaining words, hearty and deferential. Do they have any relationship to each other? Hearty and deferential, yeah. And so we know they have to be wrong. Even if we don't know the meaning of the sentence, we know they have to be wrong because they don't pair up. And the correct answers have to pair up. If we're going to pick two correct answers, the two correct answers need to mean roughly the same thing. All right, so both mean secretive for covert and surreptitious. Artless and ingenuous both mean sincere, unsophisticated, naive. Now here's the cool thing we can do. And for just a second, for just one last time, I'm going to cover the sentence up. Now what we're going to do in a second is we're going to read this sentence. But the way that we're going to read this sentence is going to be different from how we normally read it. Instead of us trying to predict what the answer is. All we're doing is asking ourselves, in this particular sentence right here, does it make more sense that the blank means secretive, or does it make more sense that the blank means sincere or naive? That's all we've got to do. That's all we've got to do. Okay, so after the new employee's first blank attempt resulted in an unfavorable deal for his company, he took a class in negotiating and was far more cunning. Now, we still want to find the clues and the pivots. They're going to help us out. What's the clue here? What do you guys think? He became cunning. Yeah, you guys have it. He became cunning, right? And I love it. I call this a pivot every time I see it. Time words. After something, then the next time around, he became more cunning. So that means that the correct answer needs to be the opposite of cunning. Right? And we can also take a look at, there's other clues in here. There's the idea that it was an unfavorable deal. He took a class in negotiating. But the main thing here is that he used to be something, and then he did something else and became more cunning. So what's the opposite of cunning? Secretive or sincere and naive? Yeah, that's it. And so answer choice analysis really allowed us to get down to a very easy test that we could apply to the sentences. Okay, here's the problem with answer choice analysis. If you don't know what all of the words mean in the answer choices, or if you're not able to find pairs of words, this doesn't work very well. So I think the answer choice analysis is really quick and efficient and very, very useful when you know all of the words. And the reason why is you can very, very quickly pair up the words, eliminate the ones like, in this case, hearty and deferential, eliminate the ones that can't pair up, and very quickly analyze the sentence, already knowing that the correct answer needs to mean either secretive in this case or sincere and naive, right? That can be very, very efficient. But if you look at the answer choices and you don't know enough of those words, this doesn't work very well. And we want to go back to the basics. We want to return to how we do these problems normally. We want to find that target, find that pivot, find that clue, and use that to help us. And then once we're down to the answer choices, knowing the type of word that we need, then we can use a little taste of answer choice analysis to help us better make choices. So does that make sense? Basically, answer choice analysis, great, but only if we can pair the words up. We don't even need to know their meanings perfectly, but we've got to at least know them well enough to pair them up. And if we can't do that, then we've got a problem. I would say that you can still do this as long as you know 5 of the words, because, like I said earlier, you will almost get 2 pairs and 1 set of unpaired words. So if you know 5 of the words, that's good enough. But 4 or less, you're going to have a hard time, and you probably want to start with the sentence instead. Okay, so most of the sets have 2 pairs, like we've said. They don't all, but most of them do. A couple of tricks that they'll try to show you. So just to point that out again, 2 pairs and then 2 unrelated answers. But it's also possible that you'd see 3 pairs or 1 pair. What happens if you see 1 pair with 4 unrelated answers? What happens in that case? Yeah, that's the answer. You don't even care about the sentence at that point. That being said, be very, very careful. Make sure you're 100% sure that the other 4 words are unrelated. And it doesn't come up all that often. But if you see that, you know the answer has to be the pair. When it's 3 pairs, things are a little bit more challenging. Then you've got 3 opportunities to be correct. and we're going to have to look at the sentence carefully. All right, one of the most common traps they'll try to throw at you is a false triple. In other words, it will look like there, instead of a pair, it'll look like a triple. 3 words that mean the same thing. But actually what's going to be true is that there will be a pair out of these 3, and the third word will be different in some subtle way. And if you see that kind of a triple, they love that as a trap, so that almost guarantees that if you figure out of the triple which 2 are the true synonyms, they're the correct answer. They just love to set you up like that. So in this case, we've got terse, succinct, and brusque. All 3 of those words mean using very few words. So all 3 of those words mean to use very few words. You guys tell me, which is the odd man out and why? Caitlin's got it. That is 100% correct. Terse and brusque go together because they're both negative. Succinct is the odd man out because even though it means the same thing, the connotation is positive. You would never describe someone as succinct and mean it in a negative way. But you would describe in a negative way someone as being terse or brusque. Succinct means that they get to the point really well. You like that. Terse means you can't get anything out of them, or brusque means they're almost rude in how short they are in their use of language. Good job there. If I saw this pattern right here, I would be pretty sure that the correct answer is going to be terse and brusque. I would be pretty sure. Even if there's another pair there, just seeing this trap, I'd be pretty sure. Now, I would still double check the sentence, and I'd still make sure that it made sense to use a word meaning, using few words, but I'd be pretty convinced if I saw that pattern that that's what was going to turn out to be the case. All right, so if you know all 6 words, answer choice analysis gets you to a 50-50 chance most of the time. In other words, there's 2 pairs. You know the correct answer is one of the 2 pairs, even if you don't look at the sentence itself. So if you don't understand the sentence at all, but you knew all 6 words, you've still had a 50-50 guess. Random guessing, by the way, guys, since you have to choose 2 from among 6, we'll do this when we get to combinatorics in mathematics, but it's basically a 1 out of 15 chance of being correct. A 1 out of 15 chance of being correct. That's a lot worse than the old version of the test where random guessing was always at least 1 out of 5. So what we've been doing so far is sentence analysis. What we've done with text completions, right? What we've now done at the beginning with these equivalency problems. But what we just saw is the idea of answer choice analysis. Try that first. Try that first on a couple of problems and see if it's working for you. My basic approach personally is and I know that this goes against everything I've already told you, but I quickly glance at the 6 words. If I know them all, I ignore the sentence and do answer choice analysis. If I don't know them all or I'm a little bit unsure about any of them, then I immediately cover up the answer choices. Try to forget I even saw them and go through my standard sentence analysis. And the reason why it's worth, if you can get good at it, the reason why it's worth looking at answer choice analysis is because, number 1, it's usually faster. And number 2, practicing that and getting good at it, even if you end up working a problem using the sentence analysis approach, being good at answer choice analysis means that when you're down to 3 and you're not sure of how to go, just like we saw with that example where we had grandstanding and rhetoric and idealism, having a good idea about answer choice analysis lets us take the next step and figure out which 2 it actually is. So it benefits us by being efficient if we know all the words, and it also benefits us by giving us a new skill in looking at the answers that works even if we're looking at the sentence first. Does that make sense to everybody, what I mean by when I should use this, when I shouldn't? And by the way, if I look down at those words and I don't know but 2 or 3 of them, there's no way I'm looking at the answers first. I'm immediately going to the sentence every time. The only real time I use answer choice analysis first is if I'm pretty confident on all of the words or nearly all of the words. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes. Actually, let's not even give you 3 minutes. Let's do 2 minutes. Don't look them up. See if you can analyze these sets of 6 and see if you can figure out the pairs. And I'll give you a little bit of a clue. One of these has 2 pairs, one of them has 3 pairs, and one of them has a false triple. So 2 minutes, good luck, and then we'll talk about it. All right, how'd that go, guys? So, Caitlin, you're up first. Give me a pair of words from the first. All right, hiatus and lull. What do those mean? And feel free to hop on the mic if you'd like. Yeah, they both mean a pause in the action, right? A pause in the action. Okay, Emma, was there another pair here or not? Ah, okay. So let's take a look at these real quick. We've got the words resolution, epitome, acme, and nadir. What does nadir mean? Anybody know? Yeah, it's the low point, the bottom, the lowest point. What's the exact antonym of nadir? Yeah, that actually is a good antonym of it. So nadir and acme definitely are not a pair. Is nadir a pair with epitome or resolution? All right, so this must be one of our unpaired. And by the way, resolution is unpaired as well. Actually, the other pair here ended up being epitome and acme. They mean essentially the same thing. Not perfectly. Right? Acme is the best, the highest point. Epitome is more the best example of, but they're close enough to be put together. And by the way, one other word that the GRE loves to toss in there that also means the opposite of the nadir is the zenith. So the nadir is the lowest point, the zenith is the highest point. And you hear that both used in more metaphorical senses today, but it also is used a lot in astronomy. Okay, Jane, were you able to find a pair for the second group? Hop on the mic if you want to. Okay, and what do those words mean? All right, Jignatia, did you find a pair in the second group, another pair other than the one that Jane noticed? Actually, those don't pair up. Those don't pair up. Garrulous and loquacious both mean talkative, but gregarious doesn't necessarily have anything to do with talkativeness. But you're right that gregarious does go with one of these other words. What does gregarious mean, guys? Oftentimes people that are very gregarious are also talkative, but they don't have to be. Yes, social, friendly, sociable. Which of those other words means social or sociable? Sorry, guys, I think my mic cut out there for a second. Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry about that. So all it was saying is the idea that, let me turn that back up. How's that? Is that better? Technology, right? Isn't technology lovely? Okay, so everybody else can hear me pretty clearly, right? Okay. So what I was saying is just the basic idea here that if we go back to the sentence, we're hoping that the answer ends up being reserved because then we know it's taciturn and reticent. On the other hand, friendly and talkative can be kind of similar. So if it ends up being one of those pairs, we're going to have to be really careful that we very precisely end up identifying the clue in the sentence and seeing whether the clue is more related to speaking a lot or whether the clue is more related to friendliness or socialness. That's going to be the real key if we were doing answer choice analysis with this set. Okay, last one. Catherine, what did you think about this last one? All right, we've got a vote for enervate and wilt. Both mean to sap energy. Are there any other words that might go with that? Okay, what does vivify mean? Anybody know vivify? No. VIV usually means have to do with life, right? So convivial means full of life. Vivify actually means to bring something to life, or more commonly, to give something strength, to give something power or life, right? So it's actually the opposite of enervate and wilt. How about indict? What does indict mean? Oh, this is a word you guys know. You see it in the news every day. I know you guys know this word. You're only missing it because it is in a GRE setting. Yeah, to bring charges against somebody. So indict is the first thing you do, and then you convict them later if they're guilty. But indict just means to bring the charges against. That's got nothing to do with anything else on this list, so that's out. How about stymie? What does stymie mean? Anybody? Stymie? So that would be a question mark. I'll give it to you guys. You know, stymie means just to block something or prevent someone from achieving their goals. All right, like I was really trying hard to do this, but every time I tried, he stymied my every move, right? He blocked it or prevented it. So that one's out, and vivify is out as well. Actually, the word flag has a meaning as a verb. We usually think about the word flag as being, right, like a symbol, a national symbol. Or we think of flag as a verb as waving something down. But there's another meaning. The other meaning of flag means to become tired. So actually, this is a triple. This is the one that was the false triple. Enervate, flag, and wilt all seem to go together. So let's talk about that for a second. Enervate means to sap of energy. But flag means to get tired. Wilt means to get tired. So which is the true pair here? Yeah, you guys have it. It's actually flag and wilt. And the difference in this set of three, remember earlier we saw a set of three. We saw terse and brusque and succinct. And the difference was one was positive and the other two were negative. This difference is even more subtle, but it's the difference between a transitive verb and an intransitive verb. Now, I don't really care if you guys memorize the grammar here. That doesn't matter to me at all. Nowhere else on the test you need to know what a transitive and an intransitive verb is. But think about the usage. If you enervate, you don't just have that happen to you. Enervating is something that you or someone else does to something else. So in a sentence, you wouldn't say, man, I'm tired. I'm really enervated, right? I really got enervated. What you'd say is, the long hike enervated me. In other words, the hike is what made me lose my energy. On the other hand, flag and wilt do not need to have an object. We can just do them. You know, I flagged, I got tired, I wilted, right? In the hot sun, I wilted. So I couldn't say in the hot sun, I enervated. I'd have to say the hot sun enervated me. Notice the word me at the end as the object of enervate. But with wilt, I can just say the hot sun wilted, you know, I wilted under the hot sun, I should say, would be a better way to put it. So it's the idea of the difference between whether you are doing this verb to something else or whether that verb's just happening. And surprisingly, the GRE will occasionally test this distinction. So in this case, droop and wilt is really, that should be flag and wilt is the only true pair, is the only true pair. I don't know why that says droop there. Sorry about that. That should say flag. Flag and wilt are the true pair here for pretty subtle reasons. All right, give me a smile if you guys see the distinction here between a verb that does something to something else versus a verb that just happens. That might be the easiest way to put it. And when you're seeing very close words like that, think about spin. Is one of these positive and the other one's negative? Think about strength. Is one of these an odd man out because it's too strong or it's too weak? And finally, think about this idea, especially with verbs, or really only with verbs, about whether it's a verb that does something to something or whether it's a verb that just happens. That makes the difference. All right, so reminder here, we're going to look at a pretty bad problem here in a second, but before I show you guys the answer choices, let's go through the whole process. We're reading only the sentence. Her tendency to blank everything and everyone during her stand-up comedy was at odds with her usual broad-minded persona. Okay, target, clue, and pivot. You guys tell me. Catherine, I agree. At odds. Yeah, Caitlin's saying the same thing. Oops, I keep hitting the wrong button. Sorry. At odds. So whatever she's doing, her tendency to blank everything and everyone, that's got to be the opposite of what Emma is telling us as the clue, being a broad-minded person. So what do you think she's doing to people during her stand-up comedy acts here? All good words, and I'll toss one out of my own. So singling out, belittling, insulting, yeah, potentially alienating as well, although you're not a very good comic. You can insult people and be a good comic if everybody else thinks it's funny. If you alienate your audience, you're probably not doing a great job as a comic, but that's still possible. Okay, so we found the target, the clue, the pivot, right? And so now we're going to look at the answer choices. Take a look at that group of answer choices. I'm going to give you guys a full minute to look at the answer choices, but do not look the words up. Don't look them up in a dictionary. All I want you guys to do is, even though you don't know the words very well, potentially, see if you're able to at least eliminate a few and find some pairs. And if you can do that, you can make your odds of getting it right a little bit higher. So good luck on that. Okay, how'd that go? How many of those words did you guys know? Not a whole lot. Okay. Well, we know we need something that means to insult. Did any of these words mean insult? Belittle, single out. Okay. Emma's got lampoon. I'd agree with lampoon. Jignasha's got lampoon. Caitlin's saying deprecate, but Emma is saying depreciate. What do you guys think? To depreciate means to reduce. That's out. Yeah. What about deprecate, though? Okay, maybe we've got a question mark for that. Did you guys know arrogate at all? Put a question mark for that. Did anybody know galvanize? Jignasha, you're actually right. The arrogate comes from the same root as arrogance, and we'll get there in a second. So galvanize, yeah, to galvanize means to come together in a sort of strong way, to come together and be sort of shocked into action might be a way to put it. Like, oh, the murder of the young man galvanized the community to protest against crime, right? So sort of shocking into action. Does that really work here? Does that really work? Galvanize? No. And what about vituperate? Do you guys know vituperate at all without looking it up? Okay. So here's where we're at. We had a vote for deprecate and a vote for depreciate, but I'm just going to put question marks because I think few of us knew the meaning there. What do we do at this stage? We like lampoon. Lampoon means to make fun of. What am I going to do? Am I going to spend a long time thinking about these? Right, I'm going to pick lampoon for sure, but I have to pick two. What am I picking? I got a vote for vituperate. Anybody got a vote for arrogate or deprecate? Yeah, the difference here, so I'm sorry guys, I'm having trouble with my microphone today. It's shutting off on its own without me hitting the button, so my apologies for that. But what I was trying to get across here is if I was doing answer choice analysis on this set of problems, deprecate, vituperate, and lampoon are a false triple. The difference here is that deprecate and lampoon both mean to insult. Vituperate means to harshly criticize. It's close, but it doesn't necessarily have the same idea of insulting. It doesn't have that idea of making fun of someone. It simply means to criticize someone, which might be making fun of them, or it might just be, hey, you did a bad job. So we would originally have had a false triple here, and then realize deprecate and lampoon were the true pair, and vituperate is out. But that only works if we know all the words. Arrogate is probably the hardest word, and I liked how Jignasha thought about it. It actually does come from the same root as arrogance, but doesn't mean exactly the same thing. Arrogate means to usurp, to lay claim to something that is not yours by right. So arrogate means to claim that something is yours, whether that's a physical item or just a right, even though it doesn't. And so a good synonym of that would be the word usurp, right? To incorrectly take control of something. All right, questions on that at all? And of course, the real key is what I've got written here in the middle. Once we saw lampoon, if we didn't know some of the other words, we just have to take a best guess and move on. Just have to take a best guess and move on. All right, so where we're out. We've also got other traps to keep an eye out for. So I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to do this problem, and then we'll see how we do. And then we'll see if we can identify the traps that were built in. Good luck. All right, how do you guys feel you did on this one? Give me a smiley face if you're confident you got the right answer, a frowny face if you're not so confident. Catherine's uncertain. Emma and Jignacia are pretty happy. Caitlin, not so much. Okay, so let's do the whole process. What was my clue? Okay, huge bills, right? And without the guarantee of payment is there as well. Was there a pivot? Was there any pivot here? Yeah, maybe the word often, maybe the comma, but there's not really a great pivot because the word we're looking for probably has to do with racking up huge bills. So what did you guys come up with as your filler? The travels are often what if they rack up huge bills? Yeah, expensive or not funded. I like that. So what pairs of words do we have here? Do we have any pairs? Do the answer choice analysis now. Okay, costly, expensive definitely are paired up. Any other pairs? Exciting and dangerous, sort of, and if I was being really careful, I'd keep a hold of that. But lavish and repertorial don't pair up, and those guys are going to be out. So why do you think somebody, and hopefully at this point everybody sees the correct answer really should be costly and expensive. Why do you think people might pick the first pair of words, exciting and dangerous? Think about the sentence here. The frequent and wide-ranging travels of a photojournalist are often blank. What do you think of when you think of traveling all over the world taking photographs? What does that sound like to you? Catherine's a fan. It sounds like it's probably exciting and dangerous. So this is a trap. It's almost a theme trap because it has to do with, it's more of a bias trap. It's what we think about when we think about maybe a photojournalist traveling all over the world. Yeah, absolutely. Which of these answers was a spin trap? In other words, it was similar to the right answers, but it wasn't exactly right in terms of spin. Yeah, you got it. Lavish is a great spin trap. And then the best theme trap out of this group was actually the repertorial, because repertorial goes with being a journalist, right? All right, so the correct answer once again ended up being this pair, costly and expensive. And just a reminder that we've now seen a couple of different traps, probably the most common traps, but there's also reversal traps, right? They could have given us cheap as a reversal trap. In this case, why do you think they didn't use a reversal trap here? Think about the test writer creating this sentence. Why didn't they try to put a reversal trap in? Yeah, so too obvious. And the reason why, I would say, is there's no opposite pivot in this sentence. Yeah, no opposite pivot. The reason why a reversal trap occasionally works is because people miss a but or a not or a yet. If you don't have any opposite pivot here, then there's not really any point in trying to catch people with that trap. So, you know, if this had said the frequent and wide-ranging travels of a photojournalist are often blank, comma, even though they rack up huge bills, then maybe there'd be an opposite kind of a trap, a reversal trap, because people might miss the even though. But in the absence of that, it doesn't really work well as a trap. All right, so recap here, and then we'll do maybe 2 problems and take a break. Declare victory, as Liz likes to say, and take a break. So basic approach, same as what we're doing with the text completions. Reading the sentence, finding the target if it makes sense to do that, finding the clues. There will always be clues. Finding the pivots if they're there. Most problems will have pivots, not all of them will. Real key, doing a good job of writing our own fill-ins, and then not plugging the answers in, but instead testing the answers against our fill-in word. Writing fill-ins really is about anything that gets the idea across. It doesn't have to be the greatest word. You can recycle words that are already in the sentence. You can use simple words. If you're not going to do that, we can also look at answer choice analysis. Usually you're going to get 2 pairs plus 2 unrelated words. One of those 2 pairs is the correct answer. And if you've already identified what the 2 pairs are, you already kind of know what the answer is going to be. You're going to say to yourself, oh, this sentence is, I'm picking this pair if the sentence is talking about being friendly, and I'm picking this sentence if the sentence is talking about being unfriendly. I don't know which one it is, but it's going to be real easy to test the sentence out, right? Really only works if we have a good idea what all of the words mean, or nearly all the words mean. All right, same basic ideas that we saw originally. If we've eliminated a couple of wrong answers and we know they're wrong, even though we know the meaning, we might need to choose an answer that we don't know the meaning. That's okay. An answer that is unknown is more likely to be right than an answer that you know is wrong. And I know that sounds really stupid and simple, but you'd be surprised how oftentimes people pick a word that ends up being wrong simply because they knew what it meant. Even though it didn't seem to mean exactly what they wanted, they knew what it meant, so they picked it. Don't fall for that. If you know something is wrong, eliminate it and guess from amongst the remaining ones, even if you don't know the meaning. And if you truly don't know the words, don't waste your time on it. Yet that time is much more valuable on other problems. Pick and move on. Pick and move on. And there, once again, are some of the different traps that we've seen over the last 2 weeks. All right, questions about the basic approach, how we think about these problems before we try some out. Okay, because you're picking 2 answers instead of 1, I can't set up A, B, C, D, E for you. So I'm going to leave it as check mark, X mark. I'm going to give you guys a minute to solve the next problem. And when you're done, whoops, I jumped way ahead. When you're done, give me a check mark. Good luck. All right. I've got check marks from 3 people. Jignasha and Catherine still working on it. Okay. Oh, okay. Take your best guess then. If you're not 100% sure, take your best guess on it. All right. Let's see. Who's on mic today? I want to get somebody on the microphone. I'm the only one that's been talking. Who's got? Give me a smiley face if you've got a working mic. A frowny face if your mic's not working today. Okay, only Emma's responding. All right, Caitlin's got a working mic. Jane, Jignasha, Catherine? All right, Caitlin, you were the first to indicate that you had a mic, so I'm going to be mean and choose you first. Hop on the mic. Talk to me about this problem. Did you do it with answer choice analysis or sentence analysis?
A sentence analysis, and I decided it was definitely contradict, but then I couldn't figure out what the second one was, so I decided to just guess, and I went with abjure just because it sounded like it could be a good word, but I don't actually know what it means.
Okay, so we've got you liked contradict. Let me mark this up. You liked contradict for sure, and then abjure was the one that you guessed. Okay, good, good. I like the thought process there. What clue was in the sentence? How did you get to before we even talk about contradict, how did you get to contradict, Caitlin?
So I used but as the pivot, and corroborate means that he was hoping that she would agree with his story. So she didn't agree, so it's the opposite of corroborate.
Yeah, good. The opposite of corroborate, and contradict is great. Contradict is great. That's perfect. Anybody else? So Emma, did you pick contradict, and if so, what was the other word you went with? Contradict and gainsay is what I'm going to put an E here. And nearly pick disabuse. Okay. Whoops, I should have done that with the pen instead. So we'll put an E for Emma for gainsay and nearly pick disabuse. I like that. I like that you nearly picked disabuse and didn't. Okay, and then Caitlin will put over here by abjure. Jane, you had a check mark. Which did you pick contradict? And if so, what was your second? Almost picked gainsay and went with rebuff instead. Okay. So, Jignasha, did you have contradict? Did you like contradict? And that was just a matter of guessing from amongst the rest of the words that you didn't know. That's fine, right? Once we get contradict down, as long as we can eliminate a few more, we can get a decent guess. Which one did you end up with, Jignasha? And Catherine, I'll ask you the same question as well. Let you guys both type it in. All right, and actually in the end, that ends up being correct. Gainsay means to contradict, essentially, right? Gainsay means it's almost a direct synonym. Abjure is a hard word, but abjure means to disavow. So basically, let's say you've taken an oath for something. Abjure means to give that up, to renounce it in a very formal way. Abjure. So kind of like if a king steps down, they abdicate. They're abjuring their role as king. And precipitate means to basically happen quickly, make something happen quickly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So those guys ended up being out. What does rebuff mean? Anybody know? I see people typing. What does rebuff mean, guys? Yeah, sort of, but not exactly speaking against somebody, but you're close. Yeah, to reject, that might be the best way to put it. To reject, to turn against something, right? To reject. It doesn't necessarily mean to contradict, although it's very close. You can reject something even though you don't contradict it. Contradict means you say one thing and I say that's false. I contradict you. Rebuff means you say one thing and I say I don't care, I don't want to deal with you, right? To reject out of hand. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm contradicting it. It means I'm turning it down, I'm resisting it. I'm refusing it. That's what rebuff means. Okay, so that's out as well. I think that the hardest one was disabuse. But disabuse means what? Anybody know the meaning? Yeah, to free from misconception or free from falsehood. Um, and in this case, it just doesn't work the same as contradict does. Disabuse means the expert witness explains to the suspect why the suspect was wrong. No, the suspect doesn't have a false belief that is going to be explained. The suspect is making one claim, the story, and the expert witness is contradicting it. So there's sort of a similar idea going on with disabuse, but contextually and idiomatically it's not working. And so in the end, the best answer was gainsay and contradict. Questions at all? Okay, I want to make sure Liz has plenty of time for math, but I do want to do one more quick problem, and then we'll turn it over. We'll take a short break and turn it over for math for the rest of the day. So here we go. One more, 1 minute. Good luck. All right. I think this is a fairly difficult problem because there's a lot of words here that are negative. And there's a lot of words that sort of, if we just plug them into the problem, sort of sound like they might be correct. But Catherine, let me start with you. Why don't you hop on the mic? Tell me a little bit about how you approached this problem. And if you went with sentence analysis, what clues did you find?
Can you hear me? Hello? Oh, cool, I have happy faces. So earlier we talked about for all, and that's the opposite of the sentence, so that was a very clear pivot. And then I looked at, he was only able to get 2 of his friends to join him, so then I did the word, like, originally I had influence and connections, but then I started looking at the answer choices, and I saw inveigling, and that means to obtain by flattery, so I chose that. And then cajoling, I think, is a synonym of that, so I also chose that one.
Very well done. And I like your analysis of the sentence. For all his blank, he was only able to get. So that only able, he was trying to influence his friends to join him, but he failed, right? And so what we're looking for is this idea of, for all of his, begging maybe would have been a word we could have written here as well. But I think influence was a good one also. But for all of that, he still wasn't able to get most of his friends to join. Only 2 of them joined him. And your analysis of the answers was spot on. Inveigling means to get someone to do something by begging them in a kind of flattery kind of way. It's a negative word. It's not a positive word. And cajoling is the same thing, right? Kind of like, come on, do it. Come on, do it. You know you want to, right? Kind of in an annoying way. There is one other pair of answers here. Does anybody see the other pair? It's wrong, but it's still paired up. Anybody see it? Yeah, Caitlin, what's the other pair? Yeah, carping and grousing. Both of these words mean to complain, right? We don't use them all that much, and actually they're interesting because they both, I believe, come from animals. Carp from carp, the fish, and grouse from the bird, but don't quote me on that. I might be totally making that up. But both of these words mean to complain, or I guess in this case, complaining, carping and grousing, making complaints, and kind of not in the sort of broader positive sense, right? If your landlord forgot to pay the electricity bill and you don't have lights anymore and you complain to your landlord, you'd never use the word carp or grouse for that, right? These are words that mean complaining about maybe unimportant things or complaining in an annoying way. And then colluding and extenuating, not a pair, and so they had to be incorrect. All right, good job on that, guys. Questions at all? Was that last one a little bit tough with the words? Yeah, these are words that are worth knowing. Some of the problems we looked at today, the words were really, really, really hard. You know, we saw one set, right, where it was words that like arrogate and things like that, deprecate. Those are really hard words. This set of words right here, they're hard, but they're definitely 600 level, or I can't say that anymore because they're changing the scoring, but 160 level GRE words. In other words, they're not easy words, but they're not super hard either. These are the core level GRE words that you need to know. Inveigle, cajole, collude, carp, grouse, extenuate, right? These words, and then their different forms. Inveigled, inveigling, right? An inveigler, someone who begs, right? And Jignatia got cajoling but not inveigling. I mean, that's good. That's actually a good start. You got that one. Maybe you could eliminate another couple, and then you had to take a guess. And if you got the guess right, great. And if not, that's okay too. So, point being, keep learning those words. It will always help. But what I hope you guys have seen today is that even when we don't necessarily know the words perfectly, having a really good process in place still allows us to make progress on these problems, and at least allows us to limit our guesses and have a 50-50 shot or a 1 in 3. All right, well let's take a 5-minute break, and when we come back, it's going to be FDPs for the last about hour 15. So we'll see you guys back here in about 5 minutes.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We're going to get going on math. So first thing, I'm going to encourage you to bring up your calculator. It's in the Student Center. Everybody remember the calculator? Smile if you remember the calculator. Let's see. Okay, can you find your calculator? Go into your Student Center, look under Practice Exams, and there should be a link to take you to your calculator. Here, I'll email out the link, not email. Gosh, I'm just going to type it out to everyone. Go and find your calculator. We're going to do FDPs, and a lot of these problems can be done with a calculator. Okay, but again, technique is very important in terms of speed. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to switch up our polling. All right, back to multiple choices, although we have a lot of answers where we're going to be typing in numbers. All right, so why are we doing FDPs? She said they could be done with a calculator. Okay, the goal is to buy time and build a foundation. We're going to learn how to do the problems quickly. We're going to also learn the essential FDP shortcuts and some percent conversion skills that are very helpful on data interpretation, as well as some formulas. And I do have to point out, sometimes good math logic is going to be faster and better than a calculator, especially for the fraction problems. All right, smile at me if you've got your calculator or some facsimile thereof. Right up. Okay, if not, you can put up the frowny face, and actually I don't care. That's fine. You can do all these problems without a calculator. It's just that it will slow some people down. Okay, everybody's got it, good. And I do recommend practicing with it just so you get comfortable. using this calculator. All right, so let me pop up a problem. Okay, here's a percent conversion. Red is approximately what percent greater than blue? What do we have to think about here? What do you guys think? You can type in the answer. Red is approximately what percent greater than blue? Proportions, definitely, Catherine. Okay, and how would you get started on this? As you look at the chart, look at this. What do you see here? Okay, change over to whole, percent of 100. Okay, but you've got to be careful. Look at this, percent greater than blue. Okay, got to be super careful because it's not what percent of the total, it's what percent is red greater than blue. All right, and I think the most useful thing to look at here is to say blue is 1 unit and red looks like it's 2.5. Okay, so what percent greater? Go ahead, pull up the letter, guys. Pull up the letter. Yeah, Ignacia said 250%. Okay, yeah, D. Okay, and lots of you have it. Okay, it's not particularly difficult with this problem, but you do want to know the percent change formula. All right, the difference over the original, and then you just multiply by 100. So when I looked at this, I said, oh, 1 unit to 2.5 units. Okay, so the difference is 1.5. All right. Okay, now this is where we got in trouble. Percent greater than blue. Think about this. The language, even though everybody understood it, red is about 250% of blue. It's only 150% greater because we're looking at the difference over the original. So our difference was about 1.5 over the original, which was 1. Okay? Very, very annoying to get the wrong answer when you know and you understand the math. All right? Okay, actual answer here was B because of that percent greater. Everybody see that obnoxious subtlety of the language? See that right here? Language is subtle. Okay. All right, no worries, but we want to really focus in on the language. Yes, I know the calculation is easy, especially with a calculator, it's super trivial. All right, and you focus in on that, but you've got to answer the right question. Percent greater than means you need to use the percent change formula. Let us look at another one. Okay, just thinking, what do I need to use? How are they going to try and zap me? Which is closest to the percent decrease from cell 1 to cell 2? Percent decrease. All right, how are we going to get that percent decrease? What do I want? Type in the math that I want. What is a percent decrease? What do I want? Think about it, guys. Come on, everybody answer. Okay, some people are posting. That's great. Change over original. Okay, that's the formula. What are the numbers, Emma? What are the numbers? Okay, all right. Ignacia, excellent. Okay, I was just thinking, yeah, it's 50 minus 42, which is just 8 over 50. Okay, yeah, no, as long as you get the right answer. All right, now nobody fell for it here. You can't just divide the old percent by the new percent. Nobody fell for this, so that was awesome. Okay, now let's look at this one. What was the total amount of sales in the first quarter? All right, how do you think about this one? Notice something about the answers. What about the answers? What do you see? What do you see? Anybody see anything weird about these answers? You can almost do this without a calculator. In fact, you really could do this without a calculator. What do you see with the answers? All right. I see a couple of you typing. Yeah, they're different amounts of 0. They're essentially the same numbers. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Catherine. Different powers of 10. So when you see something like this, if you had to calculate, an approximation would do. The thing is, though, what was the total amount of sales in the first quarter? First quarter is 18%. You have to go and find, aha, the total amount of sales was 1.2 million. So you could just quickly think, you could punch into your calculator, all right, you could punch in 0.18 times 1.2 million and get your 216,000, okay? Or you could have just taken 10% of 1.2 million, all right, and said, oh, that's about 120,000 and just doubled it for 20%. Okay, so this is one where calculator or hand math would be about equally quick, depending on how clever you are with hand math. All right, so this seems like it's a point that we all get. Why don't we try just another little calculator practice? Why don't you try this with your calculators and just type the answer privately to moderator. I'm going to set everyone's chat so that you type privately. All right, try this. Everybody try answering this one. Here, I'll put a little time up on our timer. This is a fast problem. You can do this in 1:30. All right, at only a minute, everyone has typed it back to me and everyone got it right. So I'm going to stop this timer and say, oh, you guys need some more challenging exercises. This was just to catch people who typed in 0.7 instead of 0.07, and nobody did that. Fabulous. We're going to go on to something more challenging. Okay, so just a quick, I have a little worksheet on calculator common sense. The problem is sometimes when we're using a calculator, our fingers fly over the buttons or our little mouse clicks fly over the buttons, and we don't always punch the right number. So it's really good to do a quick approximation by hand to check your answer. All right? Something like this. What percent of 5 is 7? Well, you know it's got to be over 100%. This is the kind of problem that's really hard to set up correctly. All right. What percent of 5 is 7, by the way? How do you set up that math? Anybody remember how do you set that math up? If I ask, it's a weird way to ask the question, but how do I set up the math? Here, I'm going to turn back on so you can type to the class. Okay. What percent of 5 is 7? Yeah, I think everybody has it. It's 7 over 5 equals x over 100. That's this thing, way back from grade school. Okay, so everybody translated it correctly. That's the biggest challenge. All right. Okay. Percent decrease from 213 to 99. What's that, percent decrease? Don't actually do the math, just set it up. I'm sure you guys can all punch the calculator. Or even approximate it for me. The percent decrease, approximately what percent decrease? All right, without doing the math, without even setting it up, I'm going to say just, okay, guys, you're doing it exactly, approximately. Approximately. Okay, yeah, I like what Jane is saying. You know it's more than 50% because this is 99 is less than half of 213. Okay, and then just approximately 0.5% of 212,435, approximately. What does that have to be? What does that have to be? Just approximating it. Quickly, no calculator, approximate. All right, approximate. Whoa, okay. All right, hang on. It's got to be just a little more than 1,000. All right, now think about it. 0.5%, that's half of 1%. 1% is going to be about 2,100. Okay, you just move the decimal point. I love these loops. All right, so 1%. All right, it's going to be, as I move in, I'm going to get, whoa. Okay. I'm just going to move it in 2 places. Okay, and I've got about 2,124. That's 1%, and then half of that is about 1,000. Yeah, 0.5, not 5%. Be very careful. A lot of times they catch people just because people are rushing through these problems, because these problems are so straightforward conceptually. Okay, so a couple of things. Again, same thing. If you're asked number of gallons of oil increased by what percent from 2006 to 2007, what are you setting up as your equation? All right, just read this really carefully. And I apologize, my mic is automatically adjusting its volume. This is the most bizarre thing. All right, look at this thing. How would you set this up? Number of gallons of oil increased by what percent from 2006 to 2007? How would you figure that out? All right. Okay. Okay, the key though is to remember what's the difference, what's the original. Yeah, Catherine's got it, absolutely. Okay. All right, yeah, divided by 2006, that's always a tough part. And Emma, thank you. Thank you. And Jignasha, you also have it. She sent it privately. Okay, number of male sophomores in 2001 is what percent of the number of female sophomores in 2002? I love this type of problem. It's all about setting it up. It's what percent of. How would you set that up? Let's see some typing. All right, I need a little more of an equation, Emma. The number of male sophomores, how would I solve for this? In 2001 is what percent of the number of female sophomores? Okay. All right, yeah, Catherine has it. Close. Okay, male in 2001 over female in 2002 times 100. All right. Yeah, okay, Catherine, you just rearranged it. You got it. All right, perfectly fine. Okay, 10 is what percent of 8? How would you set that up? You know it's going to be greater than 100. 10 is what percent of 8? 10 over 8 times 100. Okay, and good. Thank you, Catherine. 10 is what percent greater than 8? Notice the subtle difference in the language. 10 is what percent of 8? What percent greater than 8? What do you have to do here? 10 is what percent greater than 8? Thinking through this. 10 minus 8. Yes, Jignasha and Emma both have it. You're putting that 2. Okay. That 2 times 8 over 100 is 25%. And notice, these are always different by 100%, just like that first problem that got us. Okay, remember at the very beginning, this little beast here. It's really common to make this sort of a mistake, and you just, sorry, whoops. Sorry, I'm losing control of the slides. These are always going to be different by 100%, and that's where your quick check, wait a second, is it what percent of 8 or what percent greater than or less than will help you out. I find that the key to not making an error here, as long as you have a calculator, the key is just taking your time to read and figure out what you're actually looking for. All right, so enough of a warm-up with reading the darn things carefully. Let's try some problems. Okay, percent operations. Let's take a minute and a half and try this one. Here you go. Okay, not a lot of answers here. All right, this was a bit of a struggle for people. Okay, how many of you, smile at me if you got an equation for what store M was selling the coat for. Who got an equation for this? Smile if you got it to an equation. All right, okay. And hand clap if you got an equation for the selling price of store B. For what store B was selling it for. Hand clap. All right, so most people have equations, and yet most people don't have answers up. What are those equations? Let's type in the equations. I'll put them up. All right, let's figure out why we had such a hard time with this. What's that equation for A? Everybody type in your equation for A. Okay, Jane has X plus 60. Okay, that's store M. All right. Okay. All right, so the key is it's at a 20% discount. Yeah, Emma's got it. All right, Emma's got it. It's 0.8 times X plus 60. All right, or that's just 0.8X plus 48, right? 0.8X plus 48. Good. Now, what was the equation for store N, for quantity B? What was its selling price? What was the selling price there? What was the selling price of store N? Store N. Okay, Emma's got it again. All right. We've got 1.6X and Jane has it, minus 20. Okay. Now, we had a little bit of confusion here. All right. And notice this. Look, 20% discount off the amount. This is from A. So that means that ties to the 80. Okay, sold the coat for 60% greater than the wholesale cost. Okay, and that ties to this 1.6. All right? Okay, now Emma, why don't you hop on the mic? You got both of them correctly. What was the key to solving this? Because I look at this and I think, oh no, I can't solve. It doesn't, I can't tell. How did you solve? You don't have a mic? That's fine. Why don't you type it to me? Type it to us. What did you see in this problem? You can even go sit on it with a pointer. Here, I'll show you the pointer. Let me find it for you. That thing that looks like a magic wand, you can point at it or you can highlight it with the big orange highlighter. What helps us figure this out? What helps us figure it out? Okay, we're going to all figure this out, okay? So while Emma's explaining, I want everyone, smile at me if you understand to this point, if you got the correct equations, or if the correct equations make sense. All right, thumbs down if the correct equations do not make sense. If there's a lack of clarity with the equations. All right, okay. So some lack of clarity. So while Emma types, okay, you did it by the order that it was shown. Okay, what I was thinking of was the importance of this X dollars where X is greater than 90. Okay, so let's look at the correct equations again to make sure everybody understands. All right. Okay, so Jignasha, the first equation, store M sold the coat for $60 more than the wholesale cost. So we're told that the wholesale cost is X. So let's see, let me move some things around so you can see my math. Okay, so it sold it for X plus 60. All right, but then it's selling it at a 20% discount. Okay, a 20% discount means that the selling price is only 80% of the original price. Is that good? Jignash, are you good so far? Okay. Now, looking at the second one, all right, and then I just simplified. I just did this to get to 0.8 times x plus 48. All right. The current selling price of the coat at Store N originally sold the coat for 60% greater than the wholesale cost. 60% greater is 1.6x, right? 60% greater. That's x plus 60% of x. So x plus 0.60x, 60% greater, and is now selling it for $20 off. So then we just subtract $20. Okay, Jignash, are you okay with that? Okay, so far, and then just simplifying. Okay, now Emma said I did it in the order that was shown. But the key here, the coat's wholesale price is X dollars, where X is greater than 90. So what should you think about here? What should you think about here? It looks like I can't solve, right? But I'm told that X is greater than 90. So what should I punch into my calculator? Plug, exactly. So everybody try it. Plug. Thank you. Okay. Please plug in 90. Let's plug in the value, right? It could be greater than 90. Okay, we can plug in 91. It says dollars. All right. Even 90 will work, but try plugging in 90, and what do you get? Ah. Okay. Come on, guys. Plugging. We got to practice speed plugging. All right, so if you plug, how do you plug 90 into this? Plug 91 in. 91 times 0.8 plus, okay, plus 48. All right, what do we get? Yeah, 120 when you input 90. Okay. All right, 120 for 90. Okay. If x equals 90, you get 120. All right, if x equals 91, if it's greater, you get 120.8. All right. Now, what do you get on the other side if you plug in 90 and 91? 90 times 1.6. Come on, guys, you got to plug. I know it seems silly to be doing this in class, but part of this is practicing your speed. Oh, okay, Catherine already did it. She got 124. Okay, if x equals 90, you get 124. All right, anyone want to plug in 91? Okay, 1.6 times 91 minus 20. Now this calculator knows order of operations, by the way. If x equals 91, you get 125.6. All right, awesome. Okay, guys, so now what does the answer have to be? Obviously B, okay? Obviously B. Now what did we do here that was different? What was the big hang-up on this problem? Anytime we have one that was not so easy, all right, what was the hang-up? All right, Jignash is saying the tough part was getting the equations. Go ahead and type to everyone so we can see. Let's have a discussion about this. Who else thought the tough part was getting the equations? Smile if you thought the tough part were the equations, or better yet, that funky frowny face. That funky frowny face, if the equations were the funky frowny part. Okay, all right, so some people thought it was the equations. How about the whole thing of noticing that the wholesale price was greater than 90? Who found that kind of difficult or kind of confusing? Anyone find that the confusing part? Okay, Emma was not confused. She answered correctly. Only person I haven't heard from, Caitlin. Okay, so Caitlin, you found the noticing this thing up here that is X dollars, X is greater than 90, and knowing that that meant, oh, I can plug in 90. Okay, so a lot of people learned something from this problem. Okay, so Caitlin, you had the right equations, and then you said yikes. All right, Jane and Caitlin both said yikes, had the correct equations and then said yikes. Okay, so the key there is this double yikes. I like double yikes. All right. That happens on the GRE, and it's better to have yikes in class and to learn and to do stuff like this and review and think, all right, why did I go yikes? I know I could have solved this problem when I was a ninth grader. Why did I go yikes? Okay, first step, getting those equations down. Other thing, you want to extract all information. If they tell you something, there's a reason. Extract all info. Now, some of this stuff is sort of, you know, coat's cost, that it's a coat. It doesn't matter that it's a coat, all right? What matters is that the cost was greater than 90. All this stuff about the coat, that X was greater than 90, all this stuff about the coat is just a distraction. This is actual information, what I've highlighted. Okay, so if I highlight the actual information, information is stuff that becomes a constraint. Okay, originally sold for $60 more than wholesale is now selling at a 20% discount. Okay, and originally for 60% is now selling for $20 off that amount. This stuff is the information. The sort of hidden information that's easy to lose is this thing. Okay? So if you missed it, that's a point to review. All right, so with these word problems, I need to be super careful to get everything out. And I need to get equations. If it looks like there's no way to do it, think again. Check the problem for information. Okay, everybody comfortable? Smile if you're comfortable with this one. I'd like to do something else, kind of fun. Why didn't we use 100 to solve equations? We could solve it without the calculator. Jignasha, you absolutely could have with 100. We're just told that X is greater than 90 though. So 90 in this case is something called a boundary condition. In this case, 100 would have worked just as well. But when you have a boundary condition, you generally want to check the boundary, and they do give you the calculator. Okay? This problem was friendly, where 100 would have worked as well. Yeah, and old GRE problems, before they allowed the calculator, were all friendly. Now we're seeing some unfriendliness in the harder problems where you actually do have to use the calculator and check the boundary. All right, I think they're coming up with, yeah, they're coming up with new ways to try and make problems tricky with the calculator. All right, they're trying to say, oh, well, we give you the calculator, but haha, we'll make the test any easier. All right, but that was a great question. Okay, so let's try another entertaining problem. Since everybody got it, let's try something else. I have in my little collection one of these problem-solving problems where you pick multiple values, okay? You're going to pick multiple values. Now, since that is really not doable with our letter interface, I'm going to set the chats to moderator, give everybody 2 minutes, and you just give me, let's see, when I put these things up, just send me the values. Type into me the values that are the answers, okay? Here we go. Let's see how this works. Let's try it out. We have about 2 minutes to do something like this. Try it out. Okay, those of you who sent me answers. Okay, let's see. Most people got it right. The answers that are correct All right, I'm going to try putting little dots here or something. Okay, everything but the first one and the last one will work. But the key is, how do you do it? All right, the key is, how do you do it? Let's see if I can talk someone into getting on the mic. Jignasha, how did you do this? What did you have to think about to solve? Really, the key is just to set it up for your calculator. All right, Jignasha's making a face at me, and that's okay. Let me see if I can get someone else to get up on the mic. Jane, you don't have a mic. Let's see, Catherine, do you have a mic? What's the key? You just have to do one thing. How do you do it to set up to solve? All right, here you go. Here's the mic.
You take 25% of 35,000, and then you take 35% of 40,000. And for the bottom half, you get 8,750, and then for the top half, you get 1,750.
Great. That was absolutely perfect. This is a max-min problem. All right. She made at a minimum 35,000, at a maximum 45,000, and was paid between 25% and 35%. So you multiply, and you need to figure out which of the following could be the amount she paid in taxes. It has to be between the minimum that she paid and the maximum that she paid. So this is the min. This is the max. Need numbers between min and max possible paid. Okay. Now, a number of people were off by one, either picked up this last one or picked up this first one. All right. So I'm going to say there that you may not have been using your calculator. Let's see. What do I see here? Yeah, no, I just had a few people pick up the last one. All right. That 15,750 is not 15,812, and they know you have a calculator. Okay, so for something like this, they can go right up to the line. Estimating won't work as well as it worked on the old GRE. Any questions? This whole thing with min and max, does this one make sense? Smile if it makes sense. Send me a question if it doesn't. Let me know if this was too hard, okay? If the language was difficult. All right, thumbs down. Thumbs down if it was confusing. If you don't see how to do it or what happened with this whole min-max. All right, I don't see anyone showing me thumbs down, so I'm going to figure that everyone sees it now. Aha, it was a min-max. I just needed to figure out and get between the ranges. Ian is clapping. He sees that it was a min-max. Awesome, Ian. I'd like to do some other problems. Okay, this time we're going to do a speed drill. So warm up your calculator. Hit that clear button. Get ready to go. All right, I'm going to put 90 seconds on the clock, and we're going to do 3 little problems. Speed drill time. Here we go. Calculator buttons ready. All right, now smile at me if you were able to finish the speed drill on your calculator. Thumbs down if you did not finish the speed drill. All right, okay. So if you didn't finish the speed drill, pay attention. Some of these things were not best done on the calculator. Some were. Let's look and see what's the difference. Okay, this first question, poll in your answers. This is a a quantitative comparison, a QC. So it's either A is greater, B is greater, C, they're the same, or D, you cannot tell. All right. Ooh, we have answers all over the place. How interesting. We have B, we have D, and we have C. All right. Okay. So how would you solve this? First of all, an approach. A equals 3B. A equals 3B. Okay. What did someone do? Let's see. I'm going to ask someone. Caitlin, what did you do as a strategy? Just type it into us. Tell us. What did you do? What did you do? 0.5a was your equation. Okay, so if you think about this problem, a couple of ways to do it, right? You could do straight out math, all right? You're locked on moderators only. Oh, let me fix that. Okay, sorry about that, Caitlin. All right. So you started off with 0.5a. So you translated to equations. Here you have 0.5a. And here you had 1.5b. Okay? So then you substituted 0.5, you substituted in the 3b. Excellent. All right? 0.5, and then you plugged in a 3b. Okay? And you got 1.5b. And it looks like they're the same. Okay? Very good. Any weird cases that anyone wanted to try? Any weird cases that you wanted to consider? Who considered a weird case? Anybody think about a weird case? Looks like they're the same to me. Looks like it's C. All right. Even if you try 0, say, it's still going to be all right. Okay. Even if you try 0. Or if you try a negative number. All right, we're still fine, and the answer is C. Questions or comments? All right, what Caitlin did was just perfect. Questions or comments? Okay, smile if that one makes sense. Let's move on to the next one. If that's good. Thumbs down if it doesn't. I'm going to ask you to respond quickly so we can get through as much material as possible. Okay, answer to the next question. Is it A or is it B? Is it A or is it B? All right. Wow, awesome. Look at that. All A's. Fantastic. Okay. Now this was straight out calculator math. Okay. Anybody have any trouble with this one, or should we just move on and look at the next one? Smile if this was totally comfy. All right. Okay, if it wasn't totally comfy, I want you to ask a question. The key is to just plug in the stuff in the calculator, and you have to remember what you're doing is first it's 75 times 1.17 to get a 17% markup, and then to get an additional 3% markup, you multiply this number after you computed it by 1.03. Okay? And you end up with 90.3 or something, 90 and change, if you plug that into your calculator. All right. Okay, so that one was easy. How about the next one? What's the answer to the last one? Okay. Let's see some more typing. All right, now this is a very interesting problem. If 2a equals 3b and ab is not equal to 0, what is ab not equal to 0 telling us? This is a very important point. Type it in. What does ab not equal to 0 mean? If 2a equals 3b, all right, a and b are non-zero. Neither is equal to 0, so that gets rid of sort of creepy numbers, right? That gets rid of the creepy numbers. Okay? Now, if 2a equals 3b, all right? If 2a equals 3b, what does that tell us? What does that tell us? What does that tell us that's really helpful in answering this problem? Exactly. Jane has it. All right? If 2a is equal to 3b, okay, then a divided by b, I divide both sides by b, all right, is going to be equal to 3 divided by 2. So a over b equals 1.5. All right, or a equals, as Jignash is saying, 1.5b. Okay, then what do you know? This a is what percent? Do you need to plug in numbers to a calculator? A is what percent of b? What can you just eliminate? What can you just eliminate? What does it have to be? All right, once you've done your thinking. Yeah, exactly, Catherine. Exactly. Once you've thought about it and set up your equations, all these other things go away. All right, the reason we did this one is the danger of plugging into the calculator before you've thought for a moment. You always want to take that moment to think, and that was very nicely done, Jane. Jane and Jignasha. Very nicely done, okay? All right. A equals 3/2 b, or a over b equals 3/2. All right, very nicely done. Or either of these would have gotten you there. Okay, awesome job. All right, now, after we did that little thing, let's try some fraction drills. Okay, as we do these, let's see, what I'm going to tell you is, with fraction drills, you really have two choices. Get out some scratch paper, because it's often easier to do them as fractions. All right, they're often wasting your time to do them as, do it as a calculator drill to convert to percents, because it'll take too long. Sometimes you can, and some people will actually be faster that way, but many people will be faster on paper, just remembering the rules of fraction math. So everybody have a piece of paper out and a pen, and you can decide with the fraction drills, you're going to use your calculator or are you going to use your paper. But you have to decide quickly, because of course we don't have a ton of time on the GRE. So let's see. I'm going to give us, let's see, for this next set, we're going to take a total of 5 minutes. All right? Here we go. And figure it out. You can use your calculator if you want to, but you may be faster just with paper and pen. All right, let's post your answers to the first one. What's the answer to the first one? Post a letter. All right, awesome. Awesome. What I'm seeing so far looks great. Okay. All right, so most people have put up E, which is absolutely correct. How many of you, smile if you did it with fraction math? And then hand clap if you did it by just punching it into the calculator. Either would work here. You would get, okay, so fraction math. You kept getting 2/3. Okay, Catherine, try punching it into your calculator then. You should get 3.333. Try 3 divided by 2, and then the key is that you need to open parentheses. all right, because you're going to be dividing by this whole thing, open parenthesis, 5 over 4 minus 4 over 5. See if that works for you. All right, I will put up the fraction math. 3 over 2 is easy. 5/4 minus 4/5 becomes 25, and I don't have space for this here. 25 over 20 minus 16 over 20. Okay, which is 9 over 20. And I'll put in a little line so everybody can see what I did. All right, and then the key is to remember that rule where we multiply by the reciprocal in order to divide by a fraction. You just flip and multiply. Okay, so you should end up with something like times 20 over 9. I'm supposed to get a times sign there. Okay. Everybody see that? Catherine, are you with me? Did you try it on your calculator? All right, and then you would just cancel this. You'd get a 10. You'd cancel the 3 with a 9. All right, and you'd get a 3. Okay, oh, you canceled incorrectly. Okay, all right, so that would say you need some fraction practice, and you might want to consider these on your calculator, okay, because many of these will work on the calculator. Now, let's go to the next one. Answers, please, for this one, the second one. This is a tricky little beastie. This is quite the tricky little beastie. Please plug in your, oh, you guys are so good. Look at this. All right. Most people have answered C, which is excellent, which is correct. In the interest of time, I'm going to show you the math trick here. All right, now, let's see. Who did it by simplifying algebra? Smile if you simplified algebra and hand clap if you plugged in numbers. Okay, so most of you simplified algebra, but some people hand clapped. Okay, okay. If you simplified algebra, the key would be to say, oh, all right, I have 4 plus 4x, whole thing's divided by 4. Okay, that's the same as negative 4 over 4. Well, which is just negative 1, right? Negative 4 over 4 plus 4 over x over 4, and that's just going to be equal to 4 over 4x. All right? And then you realize, oh, okay, that's negative 1 plus 1 over x. Okay, plus 1 over x. All right? And then the same thing works on the other side. If you simplify this, you see the same sort of thing. Oh, that's just negative 2 over 2. Okay. Plus 2x over 2 over 2x. All right, and that also simplifies. Now, if you got it wrong, I want you to look at what happened in your work. Check and see. If you were plugging in numbers, did you make a mistake as you plugged in? All right. Some problems really are easier to do just by manipulating the algebra. All right. Any questions? Ask a question if you had one. Here the answer is C. Okay, everybody see that math. All right, everybody's okay? All right, okay, excellent. Now, give me the answers to the third one. What's your answer to the third one? The third one is a tricky little beast. The third one is a very tricky little beast. And we have many B's. B is quite tempting as an answer. It seems like the answer at first, you say, you know, you're tricky and you say, oh, x is greater than y. Oh, that means that 1 over 2 to the x. Okay, 2 to the x is big. All right, so this is a small number. Okay, so this is close to 1. Okay. All right, and this, you know, X is big, Y is small. All right, but there's something that you got caught on. And Emma, you got D, which is correct. What did you think about? What type of numbers gave it away? What did you have to think about here? There's something tricky. Negative numbers. Exactly. Exactly. The key is negative numbers. Think about it. All right. What is 1 over 2 to the negative 2, guys? What is that equal to? 1 over 2 to the negative 2. Well, 2 to the negative 2 is 1/4, Catherine. Okay. Yeah, it's 2 squared. This is actually equal to 2 to the 2. Equals 4. It's not 1/4, it's 4. Right? It's not 1/4. 1 over 2 to the negative 2. You know that 2 to the negative 2, sure, that would be 1/4, but 1 over 1/4 is going to be 4. Okay? This is tricky. This is tricky. So with negative numbers, it reverses, and the answer is D, because you could have a negative. Remember, you have more negative and less negative, and that would get you in trouble on this problem. Okay? If X is greater than Y, as soon as you have a negative number, you're going to get in trouble. All right? Kind of clever, huh? How many of you plugged in negative numbers? Smile if you plugged in some negative numbers. Okay. All right, yeah, Emma and Catherine, you both plugged in negative numbers. What numbers did you test with? It's really important to remember to think about negative numbers. They tell you X times Y is not equal to 0, so you know they're not 0. But they don't tell you anything. Yeah, -2 and -3 would do it, and you could just plug it into your calculator and see it. Okay, Catherine, you use math logic. All right, and that would work as well, okay? But notice there's nothing about no negatives, and that comes up a lot in quantitative comparisons. We have to be so careful with things like this because of negative numbers. All right, very good. Everybody comfortable? Smile if you're comfortable. We've got just a couple things I'd like to do. I know we're crunched for time, but I've just got a few things that are going to be cool. Okay, powers of 10. Let's do this super quickly. We'll take just 2 minutes and 30 seconds. All right? Okay, let's post answers to the first one. Let's post answers. This is a little bit tricky. You can't tell if the numerator power is a 5 or a 6. Okay. Emma, I'm looking at this problem, this first one. Is that what you're seeing? Oh, here. This is a 6. This is a 6. All right, sorry about that. I'll write it. 6. Okay. So the first problem, the tricky part is that your calculator does not have exponents. So you have to be able to move the decimal place. 0.03 times 10 to the 2, we know. Just use the loops, that's 3. Okay. 4 times 10 to the negative 2, again, we just take our loops. 1, 2. All right, and we get 0.04. So the answer that we think we're looking for is 2.96. But they're sneaky. They're sneaky, sneaky people. All right? And although C may look tempting, look at this. This is to the -1, and that would make this even smaller. So it's not C. All right? It's not D. It's actually E. All right? Where you would move this stuff and we'll point up. Everybody see it? Okay. Any questions about this one? All right. Now, looking at the last one, let's quickly do this last one. I do want to show you a digits trick. I do want to show you a couple of digits tricks. So let's see answers to the last one. All right, and I see answers coming in. Okay. All right. The key here, you move that decimal point again. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so you realize that on top, you've got 5,200. Okay. And on the bottom, -1, 2, 3, you've got 13. All right. 5,200 over 13 equals 4 times 10 to the x. What can you pull out? What can you pull out of that? What do you know about 52 and 13? What do you know? 2 tens. Okay. Catherine, yeah, the answer is C. The correct answer is C. I'll absolutely, yeah. Okay. So 52 is just 13 times 4. All right. And you can kind of guess it. It's very GRE-ish. Look at that. They give you this 4 over here. So then you have, as Catherine is saying, you have 400 equals 4 times 10 to the x, and that's pretty easy to figure out. X has to equal 2, okay, if you get it to that point. All right? If you made a mechanical error, go look at your work. I love this method of writing out the loops to figure out how many zeros, that this is a 6, this is a -3, and if you thought this was a 5, you would have, of course, gotten a different answer. All right, you would have thought that x was 1, and so b was bigger. All right, looks like most people got that. Any questions? Thumbs down if you have a question. Smile if you're comfortable with that. I'm going to show us just one more type of problem. We're running to the end. Okay, it looks like everyone's comfortable. But this is another really weird and interesting problem. Type of problem that you will sometimes see on the GRE, and we're going to do 2 of them. Let's see, let's just try this first one very quickly. I'm going to put up 2 minutes. This is a neat trick. You can figure this out even if you don't know. Remember, they'll never ask you to do an insane calculation. There must be some sort of pattern or trick. Try this. All right, a couple of people got it. A couple of people got it, and there is a really neat trick here. I am going to turn your chats back on, okay? And Jignasha, what's the trick? You don't have a mic, but what's the trick? The trick here is this units digit trick. What do you see, guys? Okay, immediately, if you don't know how to solve something, 23 to the 1, the units digit has to be 1, right? Yeah. Now what else? What about the units digit of 23 to the 2? What does that have to be? Yeah, it has to be 9, okay? And you just think about that with 23 times 23. The only thing that matters for getting the 1's digit is just that 3, right? Because it's just 9. And then everything else is going to be over. You know, it's going to be 10's digit or greater. The 3 times 2 giving you the 6, that's in the 10's digit. And then this 20 times 3 giving you another 6, that's over here as well. So all you care about is that 9. All right, so you might see an interesting pattern here. 3, 9, these are the units digits. And then we really only have to worry about the 3. So 3 to the 3rd, we get 27, so our units digit is 7. If we multiply that times 3 again, all right, 3 to the 4th, what's 3 to the 4th? Yeah, Jignatia, thank you. Only see that 3. 81. Now, once I get a 1, why am I all excited? What happens, guys, with the 1? What has to happen? 3 to the 5th has to end in what? Pattern, exactly. Catherine has it. It's a pattern, all right? Yeah, then it has to repeat. Okay, so it's going to repeat over and over again. So these are the only possible values, all right? This 9, 7, 1, and 3, only possible values because we have a pattern. This is a pattern problem. All right? And the cool thing about units digit patterns, every units digit from 0 to 9 has a pattern. If I raise, well, let's start with 1. 1, the units digit's always going to be 1. With 2, there are 4 possibilities. 2, 4, 8, right? Let's see, 2, 4, 8, and then 6. Okay, and then once you multiply 6 by 2, you get 12. It ends in 2, so the pattern repeats. And all of the digits are going to have a pattern that's either 1, 2, or 4 repeats. 5, you're always going to have 5. All right, 3, we just figured that out. It's either 3, 9, 7, or 1. What's the pattern for 4? Anybody, what's the pattern for 4? Come on, what's the pattern for 4? Try it out. 4 to the 1, 4. 4 to the 2. What's the units digit? Think through it. Come on. Yeah, and then what's next after 6, Catherine? If I multiply by 4 again, what happens? 4! Yes, yes, it's a simple repeating pattern. They think this is an insanely hard problem that you'll see at the 700 plus level. It's not that hard if you know you need to solve by looking for patterns. All right? Now, we're just a little over time, and I'm so sorry, but I have one more. It's just so cool. I want you to try it. It's something you can figure out really quickly after you've done this. I love these digit problems. Let's just quickly try this one. And, you know, we're going to shorten up the time because now you guys know the magic trick. Okay, we're kind of all over the map on this one. All right? Now, the correct answer is B. Let's see. No, wait a second. The correct answer is 4. Sorry, C. C is what it is here. The correct answer. It's 4. Now, how do we get to that? I'm going to get Caitlin on the mic. Caitlin, how do you get to that? Okay, sorry guys, I was looking at my paper that had the 4 and not the screen. How do you get?
Well, first I created the pattern, so I did the 2 to the 1, 2 to the 2, 2 to the 3. And then I did that all the way, well, once I had the pattern, then I did all the way to 10, and I figured that 50 would have the same as 10 would. So 4.
So let me show you, okay, what we need to close. You're really close. And actually it does work out for 50, but think about what 40 would have been. If I put them up with the pattern, okay, it's going to repeat, right? It's going to repeat. It's a cycle of length 4, okay? Everybody see that it's a cycle of length 4? All right, smile if it makes sense to you that it's a cycle of length 4. The cycle has to repeat 4 times. It would be a real pain, though, to go all the way up to 50, okay? So the way we think about it, the cycle repeats every 4. So every number, every exponent that's divisible by 4 ends in a 6, right? It's going to have, the unit digit is going to be 6. 2 to the 4, 2 to the 8th, okay? 2 to the 12th, 2 to the 16th. So I could think about it and I'd say, you know what, 2 to the 40 is a multiple of 4, so I'm going to have had 10 cycles of length 4 because 10 cycles of length 4, okay? So after I've had 10 cycles of length 4, the next cycle of length 4, I'd have 2 to the 44, right? 2 to the 48. I've gone through 4 each time. 2 to the 48 is going to be 6, okay? So after the 6, all right, where am I going to be? 2 to the 48, what's 2 to the 49th going to be? What's next? What's next after you get a 6? 2 to the 49th? Yeah, okay. That's 2, you guys, great. And then 2 to the 50th, okay, is going to end up at 4, all right? Okay, so you have to think about this as number of cycles. Oh, I know it cycles every 4, so how do I figure out how many cycles of length 4 in 50? Well, I see how many times 4 goes into 50, okay? And because the cycle has length 4, all right, and that's 12, so, but I have 2 left over. I have 2 left over, so I complete a cycle, and then I count 1, 2, all right? And that's how I get to it and figure out that it's 4. Questions? Smile if that one makes sense. Frowns or thumbs down or something else otherwise. Okay. All right, so it's a little tricky, but this is very, very useful when you're doing those high value problems, these digit problems, to know this little trick and to know how to count through, both for this type of problem where, you have to go up to a very high number, 50, so you just have to think how many cycles, and for this type of problem where you just have to list out the cycle. I think this is the easier type, but this isn't all that bad either, okay? Great job, guys. That was absolutely fantastic. Very well done. Ian's clapping too. Awesome class, awesome math. I'm going to toss the mic back to Ian in case he has any other instructions for us, any parting words. Here you go, Ian.
I don't at all. We'll see you guys back in a week. As always, let us know if you have any questions, concerns, problems, issues, anything like that. But other than that, have a great week, guys. We'll see you soon.
I think, oh, you're so welcome, guys. I think we have next weekend off, don't we, Ian? It's the 3rd of July. I think it's on our calendar as a holiday.
Oh, you are 100% correct. So we've actually got a 2-week break here. So actually, I'm glad you reminded me of that. 2-week break, that means you guys have an extra week to get caught up on all the homework. Yeah, time to get caught up on anything you might have fallen behind on, which is great. Learn some vocabulary, play some Ken. Reread any of the strategy guides that you haven't gotten a chance to look at that you've fallen behind on, and especially get ready for the math that's coming up in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks, no excuses. That gives you guys plenty of time to get through all the homework and get caught up. And other than that, have a great 4th of July for sure.
Sure, Caitlin. Let's see. Way back, show me where, which slide? This one here? This little beast? Yeah, the problem here is not that the math is hard, it's just the language. % greater than blue. Everybody said 250 because you realize this is 2.5 units and this is 1 unit, but it's saying what % greater, okay? And it's just that language. What does % greater mean? Well, it's the difference, okay? So if this was 2.5 units and this was 1 unit, the difference is only 1.5 units. So it's 1.5 over 1, which is 150%. All right? It's not that the math is hard here. It's what does it mean? You know, we read red is approximately 50% of blue, as approximately what % of blue, and we often miss that greater than. That's why this is so tricky. Does that explain it? Okay. All right. Awesome. Yeah, and this is, I had another slide for this. Just because this comes up so often, I feel like they're trying to entrap people with this sort of thing. % of versus % greater. Yeah, it's the kind of thing that really can drive me nuts, and that's why I wanted to call it out, just so everyone could see that language. Okay. All right, great. Let me see. And we should probably turn off our recording. Let me kill it.